right in front, I'm gonna sit in the corner.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we're going to talk about different styles of writing, and the two that we're going to focus on are academic and journalistic styles, okay? So, very quickly, what is a writing style? How do you know if you're writing one way, if it's the purposes suited for your essay, if it's for something that you're just doing for fun? How do you choose? Well, first thing we have is that a writing style matches the purpose of the passage and your audience. Okay, that's very important. Now, the ways they can differ, you can have different word choices. Maybe you'll have some slang terms or things you can talk about with your friends versus some academic words that you might have in an essay. Another difference can be the organization, how many topic sentences, supporting sentences, all that can vary. And then the level of formality. So let's see, what are some different situations that can call for a different style? I want you to compare a letter to a friend and perhaps an email to your boss. How would those be different? What would the level of formality be?
In the email to us.
Sorry?
It will be formal for the email.
For the
to
boss? Yeah, that's right. What about your friend?
us. Formal.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, what about a news article?
Academic.
Academic? More formal? Well, and even that can vary a little bit. Think about a school news article compared to the New York Times. Maybe those will even have a little bit difference, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how about an essay for school?
Academic.
Well, we would hope so, right? And that's what we're going to work on improving today, okay? All right. So, first we're going to start with journalistic writing. And some of the details about this are that it's often more informal compared to academic writing. We just said that some news articles are more formal, but in general, less formal than essays. So, they're often going to have shorter sentences and paragraphs, and the points are made quickly and succinctly. Does anyone know what succinctly means? Well, it says the points are made quickly, so very to the point. Think about when you're reading a news article. Are you going to be reading every word?
No.
Probably not. Most people read the first paragraph, maybe skim the rest. Oh, that's interesting, maybe not. Yeah, so a reporter is going to be very quick and to the point and make sure the message gets across quickly. Maybe not so many details. Okay, the next thing, it must appeal to the public. It has to be interesting, it has to grab your attention, right? Gotta have that hook. All right, and there often will be anecdotes and quotes. An anecdote is just like a story, you know, something that's going to appeal to your emotions. Sometimes they're going to include slang and idioms because this is the normal, the everyday people reading news articles, right? Not a very, you can have really intelligent people and just people on their everyday jobs. It will appeal to the reader's emotions. A lot of stories about, you know, puppies and people who are in car accidents, and we want to get very interested and invested in the story. And the last thing, sometimes it will use exclamation marks, punctuation that shows that emotion, right? And the last thing is that it doesn't always give the definitions. Remember, it's just quick and to the point, not always a lot of detail. And then if you want to go to journalism school, they're probably going to show you this inverted pyramid, which pretty much means that at the very top, your very first part of the essay, you're going to have the most important things. Who, what, where, when, why, how. After that, it gets less important, right? You start doing the smaller details, and that's when people start skimming, and maybe they say, okay, I know the point, right? So the last thing at the bottom is the general info and the background info. Kind of reverse of what you might do for a formal essay, right? Okay, and the second style is academic writing, and this is kind of the opposite. So a lot of these words here are opposite of the journalistic style, okay? So already we have a more formal style, longer, more complex structure. We've all been working on our sentence types and things like that, right? Not so many simple sentences. Each paragraph It's going to have a topic sentence and many supporting sentences, because this is intended to inform you about a specific topic, lots of details, okay? You have a very specific audience. For example, what if you're writing an essay about, I don't know, science, marine biology? Who's going to be reading that? Everybody?
Biologist.
Yeah. Maybe if you're really bored on the internet and you find it, maybe you'll read it, right? But usually just the specific field that it's written for. Okay. These kind of essays rarely use rhetorical questions, and I know that I've heard Diane talk about the use of rhetorical questions. Anyone remember what those are? Can you give an example? Think about the beginning of your essay, maybe your introduction paragraph.
Yeah, it is in the hook.
Yeah, it can be in the hook,
Can.
and sometimes they're a little bit overused. You know, like, can you imagine a world without technology? And then you start your essay. Sometimes they can get a little overdone, right? Maybe a little hokey. Okay, so the more formal essays don't really do that. And then they do not use exaggerated emotional words. Remember, these are more academic people getting to the point and telling you straight news, straight information. And then the last thing is that they are higher level with more formal word choices, like what we were practicing today with the academic word list. Okay, now let's switch to I'd like you to look at the questions that we have. Can you read that okay? All right, well, you have it in your book, so it should be okay. But we're going to be looking at the different questions at the bottom of the page here, recognizing different writing styles. So I would like it if you could maybe turn to a partner beside you, and we're going to just talk about questions 1 through 5, okay? So just a few minutes to talk together about the essay that you just read, about the culture shock, okay? So try to answer some questions together, and then we'll have a group discussion in just a minute, okay? Okay, go ahead.
Your hair is in a videotape. Your hair is in a videotape. Your hair is in a videotape.
Yeah, I know, behind.
Yeah, you know?
Where was that?
Yeah, so I have to watch my language.
Yeah. Right.
What is the purpose of going to introduce what you
Do you feel when you come here, do you feel like culture shock or not so much?
Yeah, I know
Yeah?
when it's culture shock.
No?
But the purpose,
But I did.
it's the purpose of culture shock. It's working in the list. I even went this I even went
Shaking the hand and going to jumping together. That's not the.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe myself. I couldn't believe
more
my
foundation, these are the details. They are great. That's give me my book.
Oh, no,
Who are these people who travel a lot.
who are new to the
People who travel a
oh,
lot.
who's gonna read that culture?
Yeah, but before
Yeah.
before you change the place, you have to travel. You travel, you leave the place, you go to another place. Yes, it's true. I mean, changing culture. You were in Colombia, now you are in USA. You have traveled
Great. Oh, what do you think? Academic or journalistic?
Oh, but I also have to speak.
Okay. Well, I want you to be able to tell me why you think academic. Try to look at the essay and those examples that we talked about. Is it more formal word choices? Is it a simpler structure? More complex structure? Are there emotional
Yes, so
words?
discussion.
Like more formal vocabulary?
Because it's based on vocabulary too. I can speak a lot of words.
Okay, that's good. And look at the
And then it's
paragraphs.
so
They're quite long
whom
too,
is it
right?
to what is the audience of? What is the audience of
Yeah,
this
exactly.
text?
Okay, great.
Yeah, the audience. So
Hey guys,
people,
maybe just one more minute to keep
people
talking.
who visit students. Only students. Culture is only for students. People who travel a lot, man.
What kind of food can you guys say? In order to work, I think find
I think it's written in journalism.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
I
The
haven't
first
read it.
question said, what is the purpose of culture shock? Who has a good answer for that question? What is the purpose of this essay? What is it telling us?
It shows you the stages that each foreigner person will different as a process.
Okay, but all the steps of having culture shock.
Right.
And why is it important to know these things? To what, sorry? Okay, so maybe you can help explain to someone if they're having trouble why they might be experiencing that, or even for yourself. Say, oh, I'm in stage 2, or I'm in stage 3, right? We've all been there. Okay, great. Number 2, who is the audience of this passage? Anybody over here want to answer that? Who's the audience?
The people who are new to something. The people who are new to a community.
Oh, the people that are going to a community?
Yeah, they have to read this one.
Okay, so maybe yourselves. You think you'd be a good audience for this
Yeah,
essay?
yeah.
Yeah, I think so
International
too.
students.
Yeah. What about someone who's never left their home? Are they a good audience?
No.
No.
Well, maybe not personally, but what if they know people
Yes.
who have moved to their home?
So they can
Maybe that way they
understand.
can understand, yeah, have more empathy, and they can sympathize with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, number 3 is a little bit harder. It said, what kind of organization does this essay have? In other words, are the paragraphs written in journalistic or academic style? Can we give an example? So what do you guys think? Is it journalistic or academic? Academic, I would agree. Now, who has a good reason why?
Journalistic.
You think journalistic? Okay, tell me why. What did you see in the style that makes you think it's journalistic? You have to support your argument there.
In the introduction, they give design on the culture.
They give what? They define it. That's true. And journalistic styles don't always give definitions. That's true. So maybe we're leaning in the academic style right now. But if you can give me a good reason, maybe we'll have an argument. Yes, Sally.
Well, we said that the academic style, it's the beginning, each time we, go to the next paragraph, it's more details.
Okay.
It's unlike the general one,
Right.
which is just in the first paragraph the most detail, and then we will be less and less. So I think here, more we go further for the paragraphs, we see more details. So he used a lot of vocabulary, academic words.
Yeah. Could you understand all the words in this essay?
No.
No?
Yeah, personally, when I read, I couldn't understand nothing. Because the journalism is not gonna do that for all
Right,
these-
because it doesn't appeal to
Yeah, 'cause
everyone.
Some people that didn't go to school or something, to understand those kind of words.
Okay.
So I don't think it's journalism, so I think it's the other one,
Academic.
academic. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've said we've got longer sentence structure, longer paragraph structure, academic word choices.
Subheading.
Yeah, so probably academic style, unless you have an argument. Do we find anything?
When I read it for the first time, I didn't find it.
Oh, well that's fine, but journalistic style can also be difficult or easy. So I guess we have to remember that journalistic styles are often going to include quotes from people, like it's a story. Is this a story?
It's a
No,
fact.
it's more about facts and stages and processes. So I think this one's less of a story, so probably more academic. Okay, number 4. Is the language formal or informal? Give some examples. Kind of talked about this already. Who said formal? Can anyone find an example of the language that they think means that it's a formal style?
I have an informal one.
You found it informal?
Yes.
Right.
He said that also known as honeymoon stage. So he talked about honeymoon, and we know honeymoon is about happiness as a first
True.
stage. Yeah, so I think he's in the beginning, it's informal. And then he starts to become formal.
Okay, so it doesn't always have to be one way or the other. I think it can be a little mixture of both.
Yes. So
Okay.
get more audience.
Okay, all right, that's a good idea. Anybody else? What do you guys think over here? I heard some rumblings. Formal, informal.
Yeah, formal.
Formal?
Yeah, like this is the stage of happiness or euphoria.
Euphoria.
Yeah, euphoria due to the newness of the surroundings.
Okay.
Newness. It's my first time when I'm gonna
You've
see
seen it in that
newness, like the
form?
noun of new.
What is euphoria?
Euphoria is the
It's extreme happiness.
yeah, it's happiness.
Okay, it's an
Enjoyment.
academic word. Yeah. You're in a state of euphoria, like in your honeymoon stage, right? You're just so happy, smiling all the time. That's euphoria. Okay, great. And the last question, what style of writing is used in culture shock? Oh, we kind of actually answered this. I think we're all agreeing it's academic, right? Okay, now I want to show a quick example of the opposite style. So if you can turn in your book, and I know you haven't done this section yet, and that's okay, but we're going to turn to page 113, and it's the article called Expatriates in India. Page 113. Okay, I just want you to silently look at the first paragraph. Just glance over it. You don't have to read every word, but just kind of get a sense of how this style might be different than the academic style we just looked at. Look for some of those clues. Okay, what do we think? What kind of style is this?
Journalism.
Journalistic. I would agree. And why do you think this? What are some
Easy to
clues?
understand.
Easy to understand.
A lot of people's opinion.
More simple.
More simple sentences. That's good.
A lot of people's opinion.
Okay, more opinion. Yeah, some of the word choices are very early on. It says India's best and brightest. That's kind of appealing to your emotions, right? Very opinionated. And in an academic style, it probably wouldn't be so opinionated at the very beginning, right? Especially with these very verbose words. So let's see, and quickly look at the second paragraph. What do you see happening in the second paragraph? It's short, it's a quote. And we learned that journalistic styles will often use quotes. And what is a quote?
People's phrase.
People's thoughts, yeah, or what they say. You know, the reporter is asking you a question, and then they're going to record it and write it down. Yeah, so this is very journalistic. So does everyone understand the difference between the two styles? We're doing okay on that? All right. Now, let's quickly go back. All right. free write on Friday, isn't that correct? About culture shock? Okay. So what we're going to practice today is making your free write more formal, more academic, okay? And we're going to talk about some of the ways that we're going to do that first, okay? So the first thing, why can't I use first person in academic writing? It's a big no-no, right? Anyone's going to cross it off? Okay, so some examples of why we should not use first person is that it's less formal. If this is a formal paper, by saying, I think this, kind of takes away from the power of the essay, don't you think? It's more of an opinion. So it doesn't sound objective. Who knows the difference between objective and subjective? Yes, exactly. Objective is non-opinionated. Subjective is your feelings, right? Objective could cover anything. Okay, it gives the impression that you have a very limited viewpoint. If you say, I think this, I want to do this. If we use a third person, it can cover a lot more ground, okay? You can kind of move your thoughts around within the essay a lot easier. It also makes your work less concise. What is concise? Is that like very wordy? No, it's to the point, quick, right? Succinct. That was the word we used earlier. So for example, if you started your paragraph, I think that sometimes people can, it's kind of wordy, right? Kind of going around in a circle. Or you could just say, people can often, and you're already more concise and getting straight to the point, okay? So that's one way you can look at the beginning of your sentences. If you're using first person, think how you can change it to something like this, okay? All right. We have one more example of how to change first person to third person. So, here's the example. In this essay, I will talk about culture shock and the ways I think people can be affected by it. What do you think? Good? Bad? Okay?
I don't agree with it.
Oh, well, that's fine. But we're not talking about opinions right now. We're going to talk about structure.
Yeah, I mean that he has to write on the third person because
Okay.
someone's not gonna agree with it and
Oh, okay.
not gonna read it at all.
I see. So I kind of rewrote it here my own way, but maybe you can think of some ways to change it. This is how I changed it. I put culture shock at the beginning because that's the focus of what we're talking about, right? Getting straight to the point. Culture shock is an issue that affects people in many different ways when they travel to new countries. That would be my topic sentence. And then I would talk about all the different ways that it affects people. Can you think of any other way that we could change this first sentence? How can you rearrange it to make it in the third person or more formal? Why don't you turn to your partner and talk about that really quick? Come up with a new way to write the first sentence. Okay, with your partner.
So, what is your way to adjust it? Adjust it.
Culture shock is one of the difficult.
What you can say, for example,
Adjustment.
culture shock,
Adjustment?
serious
Yeah.
system.
People and for new people.
Many different way when you try to for people.
Like for me, it's way different.
It can be in your own words. It doesn't have to sound like me anymore, right?
Yeah.
I've been here like one.
I will try to describe the shot in the way you
But not
think
here.
people can be.
I know what it is.
See?
Okay, do we have any ideas?
Just not adapting, I'm not sure.
Anybody? Everyone's kind of hiding. This is hard. It can be difficult to change your thoughts. That's why we're practicing it. Don't worry about it being difficult. Do we have any ideas? You guys over here? Sheila, do you have any idea?
You got the best.
Huh?
You got the best idea.
Well, there's many ways to say the idea, right? Yes.
Well, for me, I think I will write, there are many ways that if affected for many people by culture shock, such as, and I will try to explain.
Okay, right, because didn't we talk about that in the topic sentence? I forget the two terms that we use, but one is more detailed than the other. I guess it's not a big word. But, yeah, that's a great example. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I did my own free write, just like you guys did. Just one paragraph. But I tried to put a little informal aspects into it, and I want you guys to help me change it. Okay? So. Did everybody see that? Or is it kind of blurry still? Are we good?
Make it a little bigger.
Maybe close the line, turn on the light.
Turn off the light?
The light.
Is that
No,
not?
no, no, I mean the room light.
Okay.
Yep.
Better? Okay. All right, and I'm also going to include a list of vocabulary, and I believe you're going to get these lists later, and you can use these to add to your own free write, okay? All right, there's some vocabulary at the bottom. Let's just look at the first sentence. I learned from reading this passage that there are many ways people can have culture shock. Already I'm doing something wrong. What stands out?
I.
I.
First person.
Okay, so how can I get rid of this?
People can, there are many ways people can have culture shock.
Yeah, you know, honestly, that
In-
first
in-
part,
yeah, in
I
this
learned from reading this passage.
Yeah, in this passage,
Yeah, is that really
there are
necessary?
many. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good way. So I could cross out that. I learned from reading. Obviously, I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you, right? In
In
this passage.
passage,
What about, I don't need that anymore, right?
yeah.
There are many ways people can have culture shock. That's one way we can do it. Do I need to say in this passage? Not necessarily. We could start it, there are many ways that people can have culture shock. Alright? So that's two ways. We can already change the first sentence. Okay, next one. When a girl or a boy moves to another country, they experience many new kinds of things that are different from their country.
Girl or boy?
Yeah, kind of wordy,
One
right?
person
Okay.
moves to another country.
Yeah. And I think that's a case of maybe your teacher says you must have 250 words. So you're thinking, okay, a girl or a boy or a man, right? But no, we don't want to see that in academic writing. So I'll say when a person
Or when people,
or when people, that's a good example too. When people move to another country, they experience many new kinds of things that are different from their country. It's kind of
Long sentence.
long, and is it giving you any specific details?
No.
No. So let's look at our vocabulary list down here. Can you find a word that kind of means things that are different from their country?
Environment.
frustration,
They experience different environment.
Okay. That's a good way to do it. They experience a different environment. Or what about culture?
Culture.
How can I put culture into this sentence? When they move to another culture?
Different
Okay.
culture.
yeah.
Okay. Or they experience new aspects of culture or things that are different from their culture. And that way, your sentence is already sounding a little bit more academic,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so how do I change that?
Many new aspects.
They experience many, I'm going to cross out many new kinds of things because that's kind of wordy, right?
Yeah.
They experience,
Or is it possible to turn it in the passive voice
what, like what? Can you give an example?
in order to emphasize the culture, or I can say new culture shock or experience?
Well, we want to try to keep it in active voice when we can. right? Sometimes, especially if you get into the university system, a lot of professors will not let you use passive voice at all. They'll mark it off. We want to try to use active as much as we can. Okay, so they experience, I'm going to say different aspects. That's another good academic word. Aspects of
Different. Of
culture. Different aspects of culture than their country, right? Alright, it's already getting kind of messy. So your free write might get messy too. That's alright. Alright, next sentence. Sometimes people have trouble understanding how to do things differently. What do you think?
Trouble understanding, misunderstanding.
Sometimes people misunderstand? That could work too.
Misreact.
Can you see any other words on here that you might want to use?
Sometimes people misrespond.
Misrespond? Yeah, that doesn't quite work. What about, have trouble understanding? What's an emotion you might get when you're having all this trouble?
Frustration.
Frustration? Okay, so what can we say? Sometimes people are frustrated when they can't understand things. That's a good way, and now we're using an academic word. What about adapt? What does adapt mean?
Yeah.
It means to get used to
To get
something,
used to
to
it.
conform to it. So I'm saying they're having trouble understanding how to do things differently. It's a lot of words when I could have just said adapt, right? So sometimes people have trouble adapting. We could say adapting, but we probably want a detail. Adapting to,
The new culture.
okay, the new culture, that works.
Culture.
The new environment, that's another good example. And that way we would have another word, right?
New
We
tradition.
want to make sure we don't repeat the same academic words over and over, because then it loses the impact, right? So maybe changing it to environment would be a good way to do that.
Tradition.
Mm-hmm. Oh, traditions, that's a good one too. All right, so I'm going to put up a couple. Okay, next sentence. I think some people react very badly, but others can experience so much happiness. We talked about a word earlier
Yeah, you
about
very.
happiness. Euphoria, right? And that means extreme happiness. So here I can change experience euphoria. Anything else about that sentence? Or I think it's okay?
Exaggerate.
I think. I use my opinion again.
Frustrated.
All right?
Very
So we've got a lot of these words that talk about feelings. But how can I change this from first person to third person?
Some people.
Some people.
Why people are
Some
experiencing
Okay, yeah, we could just eliminate altogether,
euphoria.
I think, and then start with some people react very badly. That's fine. But others can experience euphoria. That's one way to do it. That's a simple way, right? Just eliminating. All right, and last sentence. Perhaps it depends on a person's mind and how they think and feel. Let's look at
Versus
our-
mentality.
What is it?
Nothing.
No, it's good. What'd you say? It sounded good.
No, just about mind.
A person's mind. Well, look at your vocabulary list down here. Would any of these words talk about the
Respond.
mind and how people think and feel?
And how they listen.
Psychology. That kind of is all those things together, right? So how can I put psychology into this sentence? It's kind of a hard one to put in.
Person's psychology.
That's the simplest way to do it.
Yeah.
I think that could work. So perhaps it depends on a person's psychology. Yeah, and actually that might, your teacher might say, but how? So then you might have to finish that sentence, because da 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 da, alright? We don't want to just put a statement out there and kind of leave it, right? We want to have details, lots of information. But for now, psychology works. I'll say because, da, 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 da. And very last sentence, they should try harder to fit in.
To use to emerge.
They should, well, emerge means to come out. So you think they should come out into the new culture? Okay.
They should try to undergo.
What do you think about the punctuation in this last sentence? How do I end it?
Yeah, with a point, full.
With an exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Are we going to be using exclamation marks in academic writing?
No.
No, that's kind of like you're writing a letter to your friend, right? A little bit too emotional. So how can I change this to just, well, it's pretty easy. Erase exclamation mark. That's the first step, right? But this is pretty opinionated still, right? They should try harder to fit in. So how can I make it less like a journal entry and more academic?
To undergo.
Hmm?
Undergo.
Undergo. Well, let's take out should, because should is, you know, that's my opinion, right? So maybe like something,
The ought.
that's kind of the same idea though, right? Just a synonym. And let's just take out they should. Well, you know, honestly, if I had this on your paper, I might cross the whole thing out and say, why? Why are we even including this? Or you could change it to something like, there are ways they can try to fit in, such as your examples, right? Again, lots of details, more academic word choices, okay? Is everybody okay with this?
Yeah.
All right.
So no suggestion, no opinion, and
Yeah, it's
Right,
better
right.
to have, I mean, when you're taking certain ideas and putting it into your essay, that's already showing that you have that opinion, right? You chose to write about technology or art. So that's already your opinion, but you don't need to say all the time, I think this because. Just state why it is better.
for example, they should try harder to fit in. I cannot write like that. But because you know, in the TOEFL exam, they usually ask you, what do you prefer, these or that?
Okay, well that's a different kind of essay. They want your opinion in that. But not all essays are going to be very opinionated. Sometimes you'll have 2 articles, and your professor will say, talk about which one has the better ideas. But you just explain them what, like, this is better because it says that. You're not saying, I think this is wonderful, things like that, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to give back your free writes, and we're going to spend a few minutes, just the last 5 or so, looking at them and trying to make any changes to make it more formal and more academic, okay? So the first thing you could probably look at, did you use first person, things like that. I might need help with names, but I like this one. Okay. I have 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
Which
There
one
is
are you?
2 more.
This one? Okay. No,
Mohammed?
no, I'm switching. You said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard. All right, so go ahead and get started on that.